So, James, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. I'm really excited to get into this with you. It sounds really fascinating. You're a man who has spent over 35 years in a number of careers, from lending to real estate to the oil fields. But now you're telling me that you've got the biggest opportunity of your life. And that's a big thing to say. Why are you saying that?
Hey, well, thank you for having me, Paul. I appreciate it. It's it's an exciting and it's an overwhelming opportunity that I came across a few years back. And my background is real estate and lending. Went to the oil fields in North Dakota, and I made a run at everything, and I've been pretty successful. Had a few setbacks with real estate crashes and some lending opportunities
I
that I
think
missed out on.
we've all had that over the
Yeah,
years,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
So, but this was an opportunity that came through me kind of through that channel of private lending, because that was what I was doing, was lending on real estate. And I got a call out of the blue from my now partner, asking if I'd be interested in lending money on an asset. And assets were my thing, so I understood what he was asking. But it was a trip to Switzerland. It was going inside of a mega vault and verifying the strategic metal, that I knew nothing about, and meeting German lab owners, who verified it and validated it. So it was a lot of interesting things, but I never expected that I would be owning the asset and have the opportunity that I have now, with selling the asset.
You're talking about opportunities. You're talking about sales opportunities. You've got a lifelong career in sales. How did you get into sales, and why is that pertinent to this conversation we're going to have today?
I got into, what brought me into this opportunity. My background was always sales. I started out bartending and waiting tables, which was sales basics, and then I went from that. I was making, I was doing okay, but I was a kid, and I took a job doing car sales. And the first deal I ever did, I was living up in Portland, Oregon, and I sold a twin turbo Z at a Nissan dealership, and my commission was $2,500. That was more money than I made in a whole month, doing bartending and waiting tables. So that kind of hooked me, but I didn't really care for the industry. I spent a few years in it, and it was the best sales experience, you could imagine. But then I ended up meeting a guy who his friends were coming in from Grand Rapids, opening a mortgage company, and offered me an opportunity to interview, and I did. And so what I found was, there were different opportunities in lending. So what I kept coming across was people that were struggling, people that couldn't qualify for a mortgage even though they needed it, and even though they had equity in their homes and whatnot. So my niche, I started marketing people that were in foreclosure. Um, and I was sending out letters. So literally my morning would start out inputting data into my Excel spreadsheet. Back then you manually inputted everything. And then I would print the letters, and then I would sign the letters, fold the letters, stuff the envelopes, handwrite the envelopes, and stamp them. I was doing about 200 a day, every day.
Wow.
And I did that for a long time, and it worked. I started lending money, and it started out slow. I had to have somebody else lend the money to start, and then I slowly built up my nest egg where I could. But it turned into what's the easier path, rather than doing these 200 letters a day. So I started running late night TV and radio ads, and there were no people in the ads. It was just words. Are you in bankruptcy, foreclosure? Have you lost your job? If you own your home, and you have equity, call me. I'll help you. And so, that's what I started doing. And it was funny, I'd go in every morning because these were late night ads. They were $5 and $10 ads to run on TV and radio. But I'd hit my answering machine, and it was just the craziest messages, you know, people that were up too late, you know, and
Up too late worrying about their problems and
yeah,
how they're going to
worried about their
solve them.
problems, or you know, some of them were drinking. You know, it was always comedy in the morning. But I always looked for a niche, and that turned into I started helping people get current on their mortgages, and then my mortgage company, I'd refinance them and basically give them a fresh start. And so I did that for a long time. I started doing mortgages in 1996, did very well, and then 2008 came, and one of the things that I had learned from my mentor and the gentleman that used to, you know, lend the money for me so I could refinance people, when I started was, hey, you know, real estate runs in cycles. So you're going to do 8 to 10 good years. Then you're going to have a couple of years where it backs off, you know, and slows down. And those are where the real opportunity is in those 2 years. So I didn't worry too much about it when 2008 hit. You know, I thought, well, you know, a couple of years, you know, I can get by. I had some money put away. And I decided to start spending some time up in Idaho. And I went to this small town, Victor, Idaho, and it was on the Idaho side of the Grand Tetons. Jackson Hole was on the other side. And, you know, I saw an opportunity again, you know, with building affordable housing. So I spent about 2 years, and you know, the problem was that most people didn't know what was going on behind the scenes with the banking industry and what had really happened. Well, I knew assets. I knew, you know, if I put this much money down, if I put this much money into the house to build it, you know, I'll have a finished product. I can sell houses. Well, that wasn't true anymore in 2009, 2010. You couldn't borrow money like you used to. And on top of that, you couldn't borrow money in a rural community, you know, 800 person population. So I spent a couple of years doing that, and you know, at the end of it, I was out of money, and I think my then wife was tired of me, you know, trying to figure something out, and my marriage went out the window, and you know, filed bankruptcy and basically started over, and I ended up in North Dakota, doing it, you know, figuring it out again.